Hi there, my name's Ham. I'm also known as Ham the Illustrator. I'm an award-winning illustrator, digital artist and creative director based out here in London, but I'm originally from Namibia. And I just so happen to be the cover artist for Martin's latest album, Similitude. So today, we're going to discuss this. Let's check it out. So let me be honest with you guys. With this project, the concept wasn't actually mine. My goal as an illustrator or an artist is to help be the magic wand for my clients. I want to basically take their dreams, what they have in their heads, and bring it into reality. And on this project, it was no different. This was, I guess, a pure collaboration between Martin and I, where Martin came to me and he told me about this dream he had. And unlike most of my clients, he actually sent me some really cool sketches. And he also sent me this amazing project brief, which I'll run through you. And it really detailed a lot of kind of the text and a lot of the things that you could see over here. It had the track list. He had some really strong images, particularly that one with kind of the rock head, the light peering out. He had this idea of basically how he described it. Mind you, this was a while ago, so forgive me if I get this wrong. But he described it to me as kind of this rebirth of himself, but almost as if the way we had to portray it was him looking out at a river or a lake, and the lake had this weird abstract shape just kind of like flow in front of him as the character, and then behind him was basically like a dock that went inland, and towards the inlands was basically mountains and forestry and all of that kind of stuff. We went back and forth on colors, and he on his brief, as you can see here, it was a lot of blues and purples and kind of really ethereal dream-like stuff. He really liked the idea of these neon lights, or having light kind of emulating out of the person, but also being surrounded in light as well. So, and a big case of this was kind of like, imagine a person covered in rock, or like a rock casing, and basically it cracking, or skin cracking, and through the cracks you could see light appearing as if the essence was breaking out, right? So, I mean, it was a lot. As you can imagine, like, how do we draw this? Luckily, he'd sent me a bunch of cool images, and we were able to basically work it through. Let me talk you through the design process quick. So with the design process, we started off with basically sketching Martin out here, as you can see, and I basically asked him to send me some pictures of him looking up, as he imagined it. So lucky for me, he sent me a bunch of reference images of himself, and I was able to take out of those the one I thought best emulated what we wanted, kind of looking up towards the sky, towards this object, and then emulate and then trying to create. So started off with his face here, then started trying to draw out the cracks, get a feel for the cracks, how they would work. It was quite difficult because you can draw cracks in many different ways according to the texture. And yeah, this was no different. Here I'm also just trying, as you can see, I'm trying to get a sense of the scale, how high will I put the water, how low will I put it, basically things like that. Here I'm trying to flesh out the dock, as you can see. All this time I'm sending it back and forth with Martin just to make sure our visions are aligned. You see here, I kind of made it as if the dock ended at the river, and he said no, like in the dream it goes like the dock, he's standing at the tip of the dock looking at this object. So what you see on the camera as you're looking towards him is you see the back of it, and the dock kind of needs to go back in. So as soon as he says that, you can see here I added it in and we go back and forth. I also needed to add in some forestry. Biggest challenge was the level of detail and the intricacy of this, like to make the cracks believable, and you really have to see what I'm doing here, right? This is a sped up version. This is about 4.5 hours into this piece. As you can tell by this blue bar, that's literally nothing compared to what actually went into it. And even the 4 hours is only the time I spent on touching the screen, right? So I'd kind of give it an extra 30% or 40% onto whatever time you see there, which is the actual time that was going into this. but the challenge was the intricacy, getting the cracks to look believable, having the light reflections and the indents on each individual crack, on each, I mean, even the details of the rocks and the contours in the background. Like, this was meant to be, well, initially a very simple and straightforward concept, but I fell so in love with the project, with the music, with the vision he had for it, that I just kind of wanted the artwork to complement its magic and just this magic energy it had. So yeah, I just kind of kept going, and here I played around with different letters and words, just trying to get a sense of like how could we add mystery, trying to get that aura as you can see around the character. You know, normally as an artist or an illustrator, I kind of want to limit the amount of contact my clients have with me, because otherwise it goes on forever. But because I was in love with this project, and because I wanted this Martin to feel like this was his and he created or co-created it, it was really important for me to keep touching base with him and keep sharing like kind of the journey as how this was going on. So like every time I did something, I'd kind of send it back to him, get the okay or not the okay. He'd send me adjustments. He was super positive about a lot of it. Sometimes he'd be like happy with something and I wouldn't quite be, so I'd keep going on. So I had to kind of manage myself in my own time, because I was just putting in so much into this. Martin and I go really far back from when we were kids. We spent a little bit of time together in like a little collective we had with Shafa. Shout out Ace the Bass. I've always known Martin as initially a musical genius, and I quickly learned a creative genius. You know, whether it's photography, concept building, art direction, music production. He's just like a Renaissance man in so many ways. So I've always known of his capabilities, and I know him personally as a friend, and I know his journey, and we've both kind of grown in very different continents, in different style, in different places, but I've always had such a respect for his art and for his vision. So when he invited me to be a part of this and sent me the album, I'd been wanting to listen to his music for the longest time, because he basically went like underground and hadn't heard anything from him in probably well over more than a decade, probably a decade and a half. So when I heard the project, firstly it was my confirmation that he still had it, which he did. The project sounds incredible, and it was conceptual, it was instrumental, and it was ethereal, and it had all the flavors I expected of him and so much more. So yeah, I mean, he's already a friend, but he's also a creative collaborator who I have so much respect for. I think my biggest input was basically pitching to him that we shouldn't have multiple colors because it distracts away from the artwork. We should use a limited color palette, and just, so instead of having like skin color, like brown or whatever, and having the sky and the trees green, I thought that would be too much visual distraction. So I opted for I pitched to him that we should instead stick to a limited color palette. And with the color palette, he spoke to me about kind of like a pearl, and we tried out this pearl white that had shimmers of purple and blues and things. But then I kept going back to the brief, and I really liked he'd chosen that blue and that color for a reason. So I said, let's stick with that. Let's try and build the artwork out of that just one color and kind of palette it out. And it also means that people's eyes can just kind of center more on the feel and the subject matter. And I think this color is very dreamlike, and it's very dream state, which I think is kind of how this project made me feel personally. So I thought it was a perfect match, and yeah, I'd say that was probably my biggest contribution, other than deciding how the rocks are gonna be and really trying to get that fragmented feel. As you can see, like, I just really liked so many parts of this. Like, I really liked, I mean, the cracks were so hard to do, but as I'm pushing and developing, and I mean, I didn't just rely on me or Martin for this, because Martin and we'd seen it so many times that we had become accustomed to it. So I started getting other people, like, you know, people who I trust, to kind of give me feedback on it. And they pointed out flaws like the drawer over here on the left side, which basically yeah, as you can see over here, I basically start channeling it in and I level it in. Where can you see it? Yeah, so from here I basically start bringing it in a bit, And it's simple things. Yeah, there we go, right here. So I've basically already done the lighting. I've done a lot of the most advanced techniques. I've done most of this coloring onto the trees, and well, you can see if I go back here a little bit, you can see me really pumping in detail on the rocks at the background, trying to get separation, because you know, atmospheric depth means that the further something goes, it actually goes lighter, because there's more like air and oxygen between you and the distance, so it goes lighter in the background. So trying to create depth so that you had much more focus on the central core character, which in this case is Martin. And then like working out the details, and like the lighting was so tough because you have so many different lit elements going on, trying to make it believable, even though it didn't need, it's a surrealistic piece, so it didn't need to be 100% believable, but I tried to make it as believable as I could. So yeah, I mean, this was really hard to work through and hard to get right, but like I'm really chuffed with it. And I think that my favorite part of the cover was really like figuring out the lighting and figuring out just kind of how to make it all come together and pop. And when I did, and when it finally did towards the end here, you're looking at about what, 18 hours, and then give or take another 30-40% on top of that. So yeah, I mean, like it goes. And I mean, like adding blur, adding in more rocks, you can see I kind of went a bit overboard here. It was like a whole journey for me personally, working on this day till night. Like here I'd kind of messed up the mouth, as I was saying earlier, after my friend, my colleagues and people I'd asked gave me some feedback, adjusted it, and it's just like really making sure that by the time this thing finished, it looked as good as possible. And yeah, I mean, like that's the piece really. I'll fast forward here to the end so you can see it, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. Thank you, Martin, for inviting me to be a part of this. Thank you for believing in me and my skill to kind of bring your vision to life. And to everyone that listens to this, yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoy the project. My name is Ham, or Ham the Illustrator. You can find me on everything, including Google, at Ham the Illustrator. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, Martin. I'm so proud of you for this project. It is so amazing, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And yo, can't wait for the next one. Love.